Good morning. We're in the other car today, so no CCTV. My poor car. Oh, we're early. Go the slow way. So now this is a good example of perverse incentive, right?
In order to get to the underlying truth of the economy, at times
Okay. I was talking about perverse incentives yesterday. You think in a car, if you're driving from work, given the choice of two routes, you choose the one that's faster and shorter, wouldn't you? But in fact, I've decided to choose the one that's longer and slower. And it doesn't make any sense at all, other than the fact that this route has some utility to me, which the other one doesn't, which is that this one is more scenic. You've got the rolling fields of wheat, which, and then the other way, all you've got is a boring dual carriageway. So when the local authority are trying to predict how much traffic goes where, they're going to come slightly unstuck, aren't they? I'm the spanner in the ointment, as Bruce Willis would say. I'm the variability in their figures, the error bar. I'm an error bar. And the government did the same thing. The government's always doing it, is always doing it because they're when they brought in what they did was, when they had fee for item for dentistry, they had checkups, and then you had a separate fee for a scale and polish. And it was generally regarded that doing a scale and polish involved more work than doing a checkup, so the fee for a scale and polish was slightly more than that for a checkup, probably double, I suppose. I mean, this is in the days when checkups were £3 and scale and polishes were £6 or whatever. And the rule that let the government down was that a scale and polish counted as a scale and polish, even if you scale and polish one tooth. They didn't say that you have to scale under 6 teeth free but 7 teeth and plus you get paid, which is the way they would do it now, and get no scale and polishes done at all until people's teeth are falling out. So what happened was, every dentist, when he did a checkup, used to do a scale and polish. Well, the government didn't like that because they saw everybody having a checkup and also everybody having a scale and polish, and they thought, well, look, we know everybody needs a checkup, but we don't accept that everybody needs a scale and polish. Some do, probably not even half do, but certainly not 99.9% of them do. So what they did was, they decided to try and reduce the incentive for dentists to do scaling and polishing. And they did this using the only lever they had, which was the fee. So they put the fee down for scaling and polishing. And the thinking behind that was that they would reduce the incentive for the dentist to do a scale and polish with a checkup, because he's going to say, well, now I get paid so little for doing this scale and polishing that I'm going to get my hygienist to do it, because I'm earning, I don't know, £100 an hour, and she's only earning £40 an hour, and so she can do all my scale and polishing. But again, what they didn't calculate was that the extra time, surgery time, reception time, admin time, an inconvenience to the patient, just to say to them, yes, you need, I've done your checkup, but you need a scale and polish. And the patient then turning around and saying, well, can you do it now? And even yesterday, I had a patient who needed a filling and turned around and said, well, can you do it now? I mean, and sometimes I do fillings on the spot if they're occlusals or something, and I've got 45 minutes or something. But when you've got someone in who's you had a fair old bit of chat, and you've only had half an hour for their checkup, and they then ask you to do a filling for them, and go all sort of, oh God, when you say no, I can't, then you get an idea that the patients want their treatment done all at the same time. And this is Edward Silker developed this in his seminal tome, The $1 Million Solo Dental Practice, where he said patients want everything done. They want it all done on the first visit because they don't want to keep coming back. Well, funnily enough, in the US that was the case. In the UK, it was not the case. In the UK, if somebody needed 10 fillings, they wouldn't never dream of having them done all together, and they certainly wouldn't dream of having them all done on the first visit with the checkup. But they would want 10 visits, so they could inverted commas get ready, get into the idea of having some fillings done. They need to get themselves in the right mental state to have a filling as opposed to a checkup. And so anyway, what happened was that the dentist carried on doing the scaling and polishing because it just didn't make financial sense to refer it to the hygienist. For the £5 or what it was now, to say to upset the patient and then tell them they've got to go downstairs and then they've got to make another appointment and come all the way back again, put their car in the car park again, get another car parking ticket again, like a pay for the car park again, and then wait in the waiting room again, and wait 3 months possibly for an appointment. In my first surgery, it was very common for people to wait 3 months in between visits. So what they did was they just encouraged more dentists to do scale and polishes, because now what was happening, because the fees were going down and the dentists needed to pay their bills, they decided that they were going to do, if they've been doing scaling and polishing on 60% of their checkups, they started doing scaling and polishing on 80% of their checkups. So this perverse incentives was talked about this morning on a podcast I listened to in reference to the education sector, and the education sector is just been subject to VAT, which is is an unavoidable tax. There's nothing you can do. The only thing that you can do to avoid the tax was to have paid all your school fees in advance. So, for example, if your little bunter is the fat owl of the remove is going to school for 5 years, then what you do is you pay 5 years school fees up front, VAT free, at a time when it was VAT free, and then they bring in VAT, and of course no fees are paid after that date, so no VAT. So that exposes another government fallacy, which is that they're going to get tax from everybody they tax, and most wealthy people have got good accountants, and that's why they're wealthy. And they have also got the resources to be able to pay the school fees up front, and so they'll get the VAT-free school, whereas the people who will pay the VAT are people like my daughter, who just sent my grandson to a tiny little independent school when I had to try and pay the fees on a termly basis. So I said at the time that so the government's really not going to get the tax revenue that it expected, and all it's done is it's managed to shut down loads and loads of schools in the private sector and shift the burden. Something like 8,000 pupils are now gone into the state sector that wouldn't have been there, providing a drain on the public purse. And so what are they going to do? They're going to do what I said that they might do when I did my original podcast on this, which is that they are going to then start thinking about putting VAT on fees in the private medical sector. And that's, it's quite interesting, because in the same way as most people, when you think of private schools, you think of Eton, don't you? You think of Harrow, you think of Rodine, Winchester. What you don't realise are these are the real exceptions, these schools. The vast majority of private schools are just small enterprises with a couple of hundred pupils, usually primary level, and run locally, in the local village or the local town. And it's the same with dentistry or health, medical. If they put a VAT on private medical, then they think that they're going to be taxing the Boopers and the PPPs of the world and the Harley Medical Group and all this lot. Whereas in fact, I'd say a large amount of private medical care is private dentistry. I'm pretty sure private dentistry would come under that heading. Let's just get through the T-junction of death. There we are. So, and the person who came up with this, and there had to be someone, didn't there, who came up with this, is Neil Kinnock. Someone who's really effectively very old Labour and failed Labour, really. The thing that most people think of when they think of Neil Kinnock is him trying to walk backwards on a shingle beach and falling on his arse outside the party conference hotel. And he has been the first person, as far as I know, to stick his head above the parapet and say, okay, you put VAT on private schools, why don't you put VAT on private medicine? And I honestly don't understand what they're. I think it arises, there's a lot of theories about why they do it. Is it politics of envy? Is it is it a redistribution of wealth? Are they convinced that the only people that pay for anything privately are the bloated plutocrats? I personally think I don't, when you've got a variety of reasons like that, I think it's far better to sort of think of that there may be just one reason. Just try and think of the reason. Don't come up with 10 reasons and think, oh, well, it's probably one of these. Just think of the reason. And I think the reason is that they are genuinely convinced that everything is done better in the public sector. They honestly believe that everything that matters in terms of ease of access, quality of treatment, outcomes, value for money, they think that the public sector beats the private sector hands down for the average person. They honestly believe that the government should do everything, absolutely everything, including, making you toothbrushes and just telling you how to drive to work and what car to buy. And what they just got this unshakable and completely erroneous belief that the public sector beats the private sector hands down in every respect. And of course it comes out of the, again, wholly erroneous belief that everything that the public sector provides is free. That the government gets money free. The government can create money and give money away. And practically every day of this Labour government, we've had a Oprah Winfrey sort of £100 million for you. If you look under your chair, you'll find £100 million. £100 million for you. Type approach, with absolutely no macroeconomic awareness. Almost to the point where you wonder about where these people have come from. And I think they come from a pool of people who really think that the government is their friend and the government is a beneficial donor of money. and they want the government to do as much for them and give them as much as they possibly can, and they honestly don't care where the money comes from. And I found this with I had some friends about, I don't know, it must be 30, nearly 40 years ago now probably, when in the 70s, when Mrs. Thatcher was well, nearly 50 years ago now, when Mrs. Thatcher was giving away all the nationalised industries, like the British Telecom was broken up, British Railways, British Steel, whatever, British Coal, and people were invited to tender for these shares. And what they did was they gave people the opportunity to buy them. I always said it was unfair because we owned them anyway. We should have just given them they should have just given everybody the shares and then let everybody sell them. But they invited people to tender for these shares, and they let the public in first, and then they let the institutions in second, and so the institutions had to buy them off the public. So these shares shot up, the public made a bit of a windfall, and then that was it. They never bought a share again or bothered with share prices again. It was just a beano. And I was annoyed that these utilities were being sold into the public sector and into the private sector, and so I had a chat with a couple of friends of mine, and they'd made quite a bit of money. They bought everything. Every new offering they bought and sold within a week and made money on it. And I said to them, what do you think about the idea of just putting all the crown, selling off the crown jewels, and they were like, we don't care. We don't care. We're making money out of it, We don't, the nuance or the big picture, it does not interest us. All we are interested in is when is the next share issue, how much we can buy, and how much we're going to sell them for a week later. And of course, they made a lot of money, but wasn't necessarily to the benefit of the society as a whole. Although you could argue, obviously, both ways. So, if they put a VAT on private medical care, then okay, it might put the cost of a facelift up by 20%, or whatever, boob reduction, all these sort of things that do get done in the private sector. But I think, obviously, if I assume that it would put 20% on the cost of private dentistry, including my fees, then say an extraction, for example, will go from $199 to $240, and checkup, let's say, would go from $35 to $42. So, see, the thing with private dentistry fees, I think that they're suppressed anyway. I don't think, we haven't approached anywhere near the sort of fees that we used to charge in the 80s. And we haven't approached anywhere in the same league as the American dentists used to charge, or probably still do charge. So, and I'm getting to the point where you're, let's say, we've just recently put the cost of taking a tooth out up from $150 to $199. Mainly because of the feel of it, the feedback, that's what we do. We tend to think, were we fairly remunerated for the amount of work that we put into that, And if we've come out of a procedure thinking, well, we're not getting much really back for what we put into that, then we realise that, yeah, that's the time to bump the fees up a bit. So I think that our fees obviously will get bumped up about 20%, which, as far as I'm concerned, is probably not going to make much of a difference to demand. Don't forget the old saying that if you're doing exactly what the public wants, then price is not... I'll change the setting on this car, because every time it comes to a speed bump, it decides to tell me I'm going to crash. If you're doing exactly what the public wants, then price is probably third or fourth down their list of reasons to decide. You know, the fact that they're getting what they want is first, and secondly, they will then work out whether perhaps you're the closest or you've got the most convenient opening hours, and then they'll worry about the price. But they more or less know they're going to buy it at that point, so it's really a question of where do I find the money to buy it. It's a bit like my Seconda watch, isn't it, in Staines High Street. You know, I wanted it so much, I was prepared to put up with quite a lot of shit. And I didn't, you know, I really wasn't worried about the cost of the watch. I wanted the watch. Finding the money to buy it was a secondary consideration. So I don't think, but obviously what it'll mean is that we won't, our fees will go up 20%, but we won't get any more revenue. And lastly, and the most important point, is that it's not going to create any more NHS dentists. It seriously is not. The reason that people come to see me is because they value the better quality and the better laboratory services, materials and laboratory services that we provide privately, as well as other things like soft things like running on time and answering the phone when they ring and stuff like that, you know, all this sort of stuff. That is why they come to see me. The VAT that they levy on private dentistry is not going to create one single extra NHS dentist. And actually, dentistry has been mentioned as part of a 10-year plan for the NHS. So I think I might do a quick comment on on their plans for dentistry in their 10-year plan. I think it's incredibly arrogant to think that they're going to get elected for 10 years. I mean, really. They're thinking ahead. They want to get the public into the idea that they've got 5 years to come and then they're going to be so successful they're going to get another 5. No, you're not. No, you are not. We're just waiting 4 years now until Nigel Farage gets his act together with the Reform Party, and then the next government's going to be a Reform government. So we might decide to call it the 5-year plan. But so, you know, if you want to wreck or try to wreck private dentistry, I think you'll have trouble wrecking it, because it's, as I say, it's not like we charge thousands of pounds or anything. Other people like private schools, I suppose, do charge more than us, and so 20% on what they charge. But we make our money on charging a large number of people a small amount of money. You know, we charge 1,000 people 300 quid. And that's how, like, the average dentist perhaps gets his 300,000 turnover. And it's very different when you're charging 300 people 1,000 quid. So, yeah, so bring it on. But I can see, I said that they would get round to thinking about it, and Kinnock, that toad, is has been nominated as the person to put his head above the parapet, mainly because he's a nobody and he's doing nothing now, and so he can't really suffer politically by suggesting something that is the next Looney Tunes idea. But I can see them doing it, and I can see it failing. I can't see it creating any NHS dentists, and really just ensuring that they're going to get slaughtered when it comes to the next election. Okay, Anyway, nice to talk to you. Hope you have a nice day. Bye.